Welcome to the Millcreek Government Channel. I am Judy Zelina. Tonight on the program we are going to be talking about fire safety, especially in the winter season. It seems it's a time of the year that we're using a lot more electrical appliances and lights and candles and so forth. So here to tell us everything we need to know about fire safety, we have Matt Exley, and Matt is our emergency management coordinator. You have a long title.
It is a long title, yeah.
And he's also our fire code official for Millcreek Township. Thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me again.
I think this is an important message that I want to get out to our viewers, because with the cold weather coming, it just seems the time to remind people on how to be a little bit more careful.
It is, and you know, we do find an increase in fires over the winter season, so it's an opportune time to talk about this.
You know, when we talk about fire safety, well, of course, one of the top things we always mention are smoke alarms. Mm-hmm. Matt, really, how important are smoke alarms?
Well, smoke alarms are extremely important. The studies out there have shown that over 50% of fire deaths occur between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when most people are asleep. So really the only thing that's going to wake you up in that amount of time is the smoke alarms. And we've seen this time and time again, how families are woken up and saved with those. If a fire starts in your house and you're sleeping, oftentimes you think you'll wake up to the smoke, right? I mean, if you walked into smoke during the day, you'd be coughing and things,
Of course,
right?
I would think that.
1 to 2 breaths of toxic smoke can render you unconscious. So if you're laying in your bed and the fire gets a head start on you, it very easily can kill you without you ever even waking up.
Really?
So that's the importance of smoke detectors.
Okay. Now, what about placing them? Is there some sort of pattern I should follow when I'm putting up my smoke detectors? There is.
The code actually calls for, in Millcreek Township, we go with the International Fire Code.
Which is?
And the International Fire Code says that you should have 1 smoke detector for every floor, and then 1 smoke detector outside of the bedrooms, and even 1 smoke detector inside every bedroom. And ideally, those smoke detectors, and they make them wirelessly now, so you don't have to, drill holes and run wire, but ideally those smoke detectors will be interconnected. So what that means is if there's a fire in the basement, not just the smoke detector in the basement is going to go off, all the smoke detectors are going to go off. So now you don't have to wait for that smoke to reach the 2nd floor where your bedrooms are. It'll alert you when that fire's small, and you'll have plenty of time to get out. So,
how do I get them all connected?
They're just wirelessly now. The beauty of technology.
Are they really?
Yeah. So they just have a wireless
signal. I think this tells me I need to
replace
mine.
That could be.
Which is my next question.
Yep.
Do they last forever?
They don't. We recommend that you, first of all, it depends on what kind of model you have. A lot of models that they're selling out there have a 10-year lithium battery in it, that when you pop the battery in, you don't take it out for 10 years. If you do have one of those models, we recommend you replace them every 10 years. If you don't have one of those models, while we still recommend that you replace them every 10 years, we ask that you change the batteries in them twice a year when you set your clocks.
Okay.
When you fall, spring forward or fall back.
All right.
One of the other very, very important things about smoke detectors is it's not enough to just put them up. You've got to practice with them. And one of the personal experiences that I have is, I have 4 kids at home, ranging in ages from teenager to 3 years old. And those kids are probably the most trained in what to do if there's a fire of anybody in the township.
That would be my guess.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing my job very good.
Right.
So even my 3-year-old, during the day, we practice fire alarms. We practice what they should do if they hear a smoke detector. We teach this to the kids in school. And if I go home right now and I set off the smoke detector, even my 3-year-old will get down on his hands and knees and crawl out the front door and go to his meeting place.
So you have really, really taught the kids actually what everyone should teach their families.
Absolutely, and that's what we try to do during Fire Prevention Week, is go in there and teach them. Now, this year is called, the theme for this year's Fire Prevention Week and Fire Prevention Month in October is called Hear the Beep Where You Sleep. And it's a catchy little phrase, but the importance of it is I saw this study and I did a test on my own kids because I knew how well trained they were, and it really scared me as a parent and a fire official. 2 o'clock in the morning, I went in, and we don't practice, in the middle of the night. Who wants to wake their kids up in the middle of the night, right? So we've always practiced during the day. I went into their bedroom and I set off the smoke detector. No one woke up.
They didn't even hear it.
Nope. I stood in their bedroom for 20 minutes, and you know how loud a smoke detector's going. Not any of the kids woke up. My daughter pulled the covers back up over her head and went back to sleep. And finally, after about 25 minutes, my 14-year-old came out and went, "What is going on?" So even as well trained as my kids were during the day, because they weren't used to hearing that at night, they were in deeper sleep and they never woke up to it. So it shows the importance of, you have to be very vigilant in teaching your kids what to do if that happens.
Okay. All right, quick question on this one. When I go to buy a smoke alarm, I see them in all different price ranges.
You do.
I see them from a few bucks to quite expensive. What is the difference?
Well, some of them, and you really have to read each package and check. Some of them have it where they detect only fast-moving fires, which provides a little bit quicker of an alert in that case. Some of them detect better slow-moving fires, smoldering fires, for example. So you really want to take a look at that. We recommend to get the ones that say that they detect both, because you never quite know what kind of fire you're going to have. And then to take it one step further, and I know we're going to be talking about this a little bit later on, but we even recommend to go a dual sensor and have both smoke and carbon monoxide with it. So that way you're protected against
Because I have seen those. Yeah, so that's my little segue right into, again, another detector, carbon monoxide detector. I know the importance of them, but let our viewers know, how important do you feel the carbon monoxide detector is in a home?
Well, the challenge with carbon monoxide is with a fire, if you were awake and something caught on fire in your home, you're going to see the smoke, right?
Exactly.
The challenge with carbon monoxide is it's an odorless, colorless gas. So it doesn't matter what it's coming from, as you found out.
I did,
that,
yes, I did.
The issue is that you can't detect it at all. So these are the only real things that you can happen. And you can have a perfectly good furnace or something happen that you're not realizing that it's coming into your house. And because the symptoms often mimic flu-like symptoms or stress symptoms, we don't really realize it until it's too late.
And that's so true. And I do want to point out, viewers, that I personally had a carbon monoxide leak in my home. And I think when people think of a carbon monoxide leak in their home, they think of these big old homes with these big old furnaces. My furnace was less than 10 years old. And there was a crack in the heat shield. And I'm going to tell you, the symptoms were I had migraines, feeling nauseous. My family was feeling that way, but we had an excuse for it. My daughter had just had wisdom teeth pulled. I just thought it was my life, stress,
Yep.
I mean, there was always an excuse. Come to find out, we had a carbon monoxide leak, and had it gone undetected, I'd probably say another day, we could have all been dead. And the reason I found it is I called my furnace guy, because I had the air cleaner on. I says, oh, this must be drying, because of my head, and then I had a bloody nose, and I went to turn it off, and it wouldn't turn off. So I called my heating guy, and he said, oh my God, he opened all the windows, replaced the furnace, and so forth. So you don't have to have a big old home with a big old furnace. It can happen to anyone. And honestly, the joke is, anybody I know that's moving into a new home or anything, their housewarming present from me is a carbon monoxide detector.
Right.
Because I mean, really, I could have lost my family, everybody in my family.
Yep.
So.
And now they've actually come out, and carbon monoxide detectors were not part of the fire code. For one reason or another, it wasn't included in. So while smoke detectors have always been mandatory, carbon monoxide detectors have not been.
Is it now?
Last year, the state legislature passed a law that stated that any rental, whether it's a multifamily dwelling or a single-family dwelling, must have at least one carbon monoxide detector in the area of a fuel-fired appliance. So if they have a natural gas furnace or a natural gas stove, they have to have a carbon monoxide detector in that area, and they must have one outside of the bedrooms. So, anybody who is living in a rental, the landlords were actually required to install that by July 1st. So anybody who doesn't have one of those needs to contact their landlord and inform them to get that installed.
They are.
That's how important they are.
Very, very important. I want to touch base on some of the other items that we're going to be seeing and working with in the winter season. For instance, your furnace. Now, fall comes, it's cold, I turn my furnace on. Any precautions that I should be taking?
Well, we recommend, most people don't, but we recommend that the furnaces get checked over, at the beginning of the year. You never quite know what happens over the summertime when you're not running them, especially ones that don't have a dual purpose like air conditioning and whatnot. For the exact reason like you had brought up with heat shield. Things can happen, things can get inside there, and it's always good to have that checked out. You want to make sure that if not, you definitely have your carbon monoxide detectors in the area. And one of the other things that we see is, where are furnaces generally?
In the basement.
In the basement or in a closet?
In a closet or,
right?
yeah, something, a closed-in area.
And we generally don't have a lot of room to store stuff. At least in my house, we have got stuff all over the place. So it's very easy to store stuff in and around furnaces. The fire code requires that you have at least 36 inches of clearance around that furnace. So you want to make sure that things aren't leaning up against it or near it, because even though we don't think about them getting very hot, things can happen with that, and they do have a fire hazard.
Good to know. I have to go home and do a little bit of redecorating right now. That
Learn
I
something
didn't
every
know.
day, right?
I do. Matt, I really do. This is why I love having Matt on the program, because we do learn something new and helpful, and something that'll save lives.
Sure.
Okay, wood stoves, fireplaces. Oh my goodness, wintertime. Got to get that fireplace going.
Absolutely.
What do I have to worry about?
I'm a big fan of fireplaces. In all of our previous houses, we had fireplaces. You sit there on a nice winter night, snowing outside, and you've got the fire going in the fireplace. Cozy time. The challenge of that is you got to, just like everything else, you got to make sure you do all the things right. So we recommend that you have your chimney and your flue checked once a year. There are places out there, in fact, or at least last year, there were places that did it for free, that would come out, take a look at it, run a camera up and down your chimney and see if there's any cracks or whatnot. In addition to that, one of the biggest things that you can do to prevent fires is not only to have that chimney cleaned out, but to only burn clean, dry wood. We see it happen all the time that people cut down the wood, from a storm or whatever in the summer, and come winter, oh, this is okay, I'll throw it in. But you really have to let that wood season, because if not, what happens is as that smoke is going up through your chimney, you get creosote on there, and that's what catches fire. Okay. And that's where we have our chimney fires every year. Okay,
and those can be very dangerous.
They can.
I did have one of those too. It's a miracle I'm alive. I have done everything wrong in my life.
I'm going to put a budget line item in next year for bubble wrap for you. So.
Also, now with the winter season coming, say I'm going to work in my garage. Do something, maybe I'm going to be building something. And I want to keep it warm in there. There's some things I have to worry about with heating elements in my garage or in a closed space.
There are. We don't think about this very often, but if you were to come to the Township building and come to any one of our garages, you'll see all these little yellow cabinets sitting around, and that's where we keep all of our flammable liquids. So, you keep your gasoline and your paints and all those kind of things in there, and that we're required to do that because we're a commercial entity. At homes, that's not necessarily the case. So we worry about things like, you put your gas can in the corner of the garage and you sit it there for your mower over the winter and whatnot. So those are the things that we worry about as far as that goes. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you're using, whatever you're using to heat that with, that you're using something that's meant to be inside. Sometimes people think that because a garage is different than a house,
right,
you can throw a torpedo heater in there or something like that. And oftentimes, again, coming back to the carbon monoxide, those don't have complete combustion. So there is that additional carbon monoxide or that gas that comes off of those, and you don't really realize it within those closed spaces. So make sure anything you're heating with in there is meant for indoors.
Okay. Torpedo heaters aren't meant for inside. I'm not even going to say if I use one. No, but I'm just saying. I think
depending on the kind, they can be, but you have to make sure you have ventilation still.
Okay, so there are some that it'd be okay as long as there's some ventilation.
Right. You just need to make sure that no matter what you're using, that it's listed for being indoor use.
Okay. Some people actually use. Now, I have not done this. Using a charcoal grill inside. Why?
It's convenient. You're not standing in the snow. You still want to grill up some burgers in December, right? But
why can't I do this?
Quite a good idea. Everything comes back to carbon monoxide, and again, it's a full circle. the reason why we have carbon monoxide in some of these things is because it's incomplete combustion.
Okay.
It's not pure, so there's stuff still going up in the air. And that's the case with charcoal grills and things like that. That's why we tell you, especially on those heaters and things, to make sure that it's listed for inside. When you light off a charcoal grill, that kind of stuff goes up into the air and the atmosphere. Outside, not a big deal. But inside, that's where we get worried because it's going to fill up your house with those carbon monoxide fumes.
Okay, now we are seeing people using little electric space heaters. Aren't they safe as could be? Safe as could be.
Well,
warms your toes.
That depends. First of all, with an electric space heater, because there are some gas ones that you can attach to the wall and whatnot. With that, you have to make sure that you have 3 feet of clearance around the entire space heater from any combustibles. In addition to that, they really shouldn't be used longer than 90 days is what the code calls for. So anything portable shouldn't be used longer than 90 days. If you're using it for longer than that, you should probably be putting in a permanent system of some sort to heat that area.
Winters are longer than 90 days in Erie.
They are in Erie, yes. But these things aren't built to be running constantly.
Got it. I see what you're saying.
They're built to be temporary fixes to things. So that's why
to take the chill off of an area and then turn it off.
Right, pretty much. So ironically, people don't use their heads all the time. I know that's hard to believe. But I went to a fire a couple years ago that a family had. It was cold in the house. They had a gas line in the area, so they took one of those ventless heaters that you have on the side, and they set it in the room there. It had some feet, no big deal, right? Even though it should have been attached to the wall. We got dispatched for a structure fire for smoke coming from the house, and we got there and we found out that the dogs had knocked over this heater, and because it didn't have a tip switch on it, that heater landed face down on the floor and burnt a hole straight through into the basement. It was hanging in the basement, still on.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why it's so important, especially even with an electric space heater, because that can happen with that as well. You want to make sure that they're UL listed, which means that they've been through the rigorous testing standards, and that they also have a tip switch on them. So if a child or a dog or any kind of animal, anything knocks them over by accident, they'll shut off automatically.
Okay. All right, but I think the bottom line to all of this is not to leave any of these unattended.
Correct.
Okay. All right, cooking in the kitchen. I will be cooking holiday meals.
Yes.
And they say it's the leading cause of fires during the holidays.
It is.
They have been in my kitchen when I'm cooking.
Well, not only in the kitchen, but again, using common sense.
Right.
One of the big things is, and has been for the last several years, is fried turkeys. They taste really good, but you got to use your head with them.
That hot oil.
The hot oil. And we see countless times, not only with those, but even like you were saying with normal cooking fires, it's almost a guarantee. We almost take bets on who's going to get the first kitchen fire of the year on Thanksgiving.
Because you know it's going to happen something. And not even that. I think when I see myself cooking, I've got a gas stove and I've got like a towel or the pot holders, and those can catch on, and then you go like that, you throw it down, the next thing you know you have a fire. That I haven't done.
Or grabbing, having something catch on fire in the on the stove in a pot, and you think, well, the door's only 5 feet away, I can get this outside, and as you grab it, now it's hot, you drop it, and now your whole kitchen's on fire.
Okay.
Again, a good reason to have fire extinguishers in your house.
Okay.
But we really recommend that if you're going to do any of that oil cooking, don't do it in garages, don't do it on combustible decks or balconies or anything like that. In addition to that, there actually is a law out there that states that you cannot use grills, open flame cooking devices of any kind, with the exception of those small camp ones, on any multi-residential dwelling unless the deck is sprinklered.
Okay.
So if you live in a condo or if you live in an apartment building, you're really not allowed to be using those things within 15 feet of the building.
Good to know. Believe it or not, we're coming to the end of our program, but I want to touch real quickly. Give me a few safety tips for Christmas tree, a live Christmas tree in your home. The
number one thing you can do with a live Christmas tree is to keep it watered. Make sure that Christmas tree stays watered. You'll know that you're going to get some needles fall off, but you'll know that when you have less of those falling off, that it's well watered. Drill a hole in the bottom. Most Christmas tree lots will do that nowadays to allow that water to get up inside and have a fresh cut on the bottom of it. And don't overload the trees with stuff. I know it's easy to do, but especially if you're using the old style of lighting that gets warm, try to keep it so that you don't have a lot of things resting up against light bulbs. I remember when I was a kid having at my grandparents' house, they had the great big old light bulbs and the bulbs that had the bubbles going through them and everything. We loved those, but I remember bumping up against them and they were pretty hot.
They were hot, you're right.
Nowadays we don't have to worry about that with some of these light bulbs, but those are two of the main things you need to worry about.
And also don't overload the receptacles. I think we're all guilty of it. Well, no, we're not.
Yeah, that can.
So many people are guilty of that because you just keep plugging it in.
And you don't think about it.
No,
Absolutely.
And you don't, but it's something to remember, as you're doing this, think about it. Oh, maybe I better take this to a different receptacle.
Absolutely.
Or even even one of those surge protector things. How about that?
Well, the problem with those is that you can certainly use them, but again, there's an overloading. It's all going through the same size wiring.
Right.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I really didn't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Candles. I love my candles.
One of the #1 reasons for unintended fires. The reality of this is, we talk through this interview.
It's common
and we
sense.
tell you, don't do this, don't do that. But a lot of this stuff is used in your head.
Exactly.
If you're going to be away from a candle, put it out. Don't sleep with candles being lit. You really just have to kind of think about what could happen if this does. I'm not telling you to walk around your house and be, scared to even move or scared to do anything.
No, but
you really have to think about it.
You're reminding us that these are things that so many people do.
Right.
We're still going to do them, but how can we do it a little bit more safely, correct?
Right, and it's easy to do.
And that's the bottom line,
Yep.
It really is. And keep it away from curtains, too.
Right.
That's another thing, too. Honestly, I do love candles, but I don't leave them unattended. And they aren't all through the house. They're in the room that I'm at.
And it's easy to unattend. I mean, like I said, I have 4 kids, so we're running all over the place all the time. And I've had it happen before where, we have to go to an event or something like that. I run outside, get in the car, and oh man, I forgot to blow the candle out.
Right.
Luckily, we remember it, but that it's easy to forget.
And I think one of and you talked about this earlier, touched base, I think one thing residents would really have to remember is to have a practice escape plan.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the most important
not just in winter.
And not just kids. We used to teach you, and if you remember back to when the fire department came to school, they would always teach you to, get out of bed, crawl on your hands and knees, and go out. Well, remember when we talked about that 1 to 2 breaths of toxic smoke?
Yes.
If you're in the middle of the night and your smoke alarm goes off, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm going to jump out of bed.
Right. You're probably going to get up or you're going to sit up, right?
Yeah, I am. That's
right into that smoke. So we teach people now to roll out of bed onto the floor where there's the good air and crawl out of the house. The meeting place is probably one of the most important things, especially in a fire. A couple years ago, I had a situation where, we went back in the house. We risked so many firefighters' lives to look for a little kid who the parents reported missing in this house. And he was on the swing set in the backyard because he didn't go to his meeting place. We thought that he was inside.
So these are all really important. Okay, my cell phone's still in there, or a picture album.
Things can be replaced. People can.
Exactly.
And we see that. Last year we had a family who had that happen, not in Millcreek Township, but in one of the neighboring townships. That that happened. We've seen it on the news where a father, brought the son out, put him on the porch, and went back inside to get more, and the son followed him right back into the fire.
And not realizing that he was in there.
Not realize that he was in there, and they died. So these are all unfortunately preventable deaths.
What if I can't get out? What if I can't get out of the house? I've called 911, or a neighbor has called 911 or something. How can I kind of protect myself while I'm in the house till you guys get there to save me?
Well, one of the things you can do is if there's a phone in the room or you have your cell phone with you or whatnot, call 911, because for 2 reasons. Number one, the fire department will know exactly where you're at in the house then. They don't have to search room by room.
Okay, oh good.
We might be able to come up an outside window, for example. The other thing is that the dispatchers are all trained that they can walk you through stuff. It's a tough situation when you're trapped in a fire and you're not going to remember a lot. So that voice on the other end of the phone is calming, and they'll be able to tell you, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. But I get a lot of kids cheering when we go to schools because I tell them that, your parents tell you to be nice and quiet in the house. If there's a fire in the house, break that rule. Smack things, bang things, scream, yell, do whatever you can to draw attention to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on the program, and you have really, really given some great tips. And actually, we've really just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg with some of the safety tips. Matt, if somebody has any questions and we didn't cover something and they have a question or they need some direction, how can they get a hold of you?
They can contact us at the Township building at 833-1111, extension 353, or they can go to our website, which is right through the Millcreek Township website. We post videos and fire prevention tips, all sorts of that stuff on there. The other way that they can get to us is through the Emergency Management Agency, which is another part of our office. We have a Facebook account, Millcreek EMA, and then a Twitter account. Our Twitter handle is @Millcreek EMA, that they can contact us via either of those.
Okay. Our time's pretty much an end, but I want to talk real briefly about, you mentioned fire extinguishers. If I have one fire extinguisher, where do you think I should place it?
Well, I would tell you that you need to have more than one fire extinguisher.
But say I only have, where's like the most important place that you should have a fire extinguisher?
Well, that's tough to come up with. Typically, most fires that you can put out happen in the kitchen. So if you absolutely only had one and that's the only thing you could do, I would recommend to do it in there. We recommend to put them near an exit.
Okay.
Because that way you're able to grab it on the way out the door, and that's what you're really trying to do is get out.
Okay.
You're not necessarily just trying to be a fireman and put it out.
Okay. So in a perfect world, I should have one in my garage, I should have one in the kitchen, maybe another area downstairs if I have a two-story home, a couple upstairs.
You can never have enough.
Can never have enough. Do they last forever?
They do not. We recommend, again, the 10-year rule.
Okay.
Most people in residences don't check their fire extinguishers every month, so things can settle and not work correctly. The one thing I did want to point out is please make sure if you purchase a fire extinguisher to purchase a good quality metal fire extinguisher. You can have a plastic handle or whatnot, but they sell some fire extinguishers out there that remind you of like a Ready Whip can almost, and really that's all it's good for. They don't put out fires very well, so don't buy those small ones that look like Ready Whip cans.
Okay. All right. I won't. That I haven't done. Matt, again, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Absolutely.
Great
Thanks for having
information.
me.
Viewers, if you have any questions and want to talk with Matt on something that we haven't talked about, feel free to give him a call, stop in the office. He has an open door policy. He'll be glad to help you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Jim.
Viewers, again, thank you for tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a wonderful day.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.